Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's much appreciated. And I also want to give a very big shout out to those who joined me for the very impromptu live watch along that took place earlier on this morning. It was not planned. It was an off the cuff thing. I literally decided to do it about half an hour before I jumped on the live stream. So yeah, the fact that there was anyone watching and commenting and interacting was truly appreciated. Especially big shout outs to Josh, JD05, Philip Answer, Jam Down 187. I know there was others in there as well, and Anthony, big up to you as well. Thank you very much for tuning in. And yeah, any and everyone else, if I have missed your name, put it in the comments and I'll shout you out in a future video. But yeah, look, let's get to business. I've got a few things to do. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but it has been a very, very entertaining weekend of boxing, and I need to start it off on Friday. So basically, obviously, there was the Jake Paul versus Andre August card, and I was only really interested in the Franchon Cruz Dezern versus Shadeja Green fight. However, I didn't actually realize that Ioannis Tejas was on there facing Livan, what was his name? Livan Navarro, that's it. Now, before anything, Tejas, yeah, he came on my radar when he brutally knocked out Sergio Garcia in the third round of their fight earlier this year. I think Garcia possibly could have continued, but I know the ref waved it off. But he was a last-minute replacement for Garcia as well, so I didn't really expect anything of him. It was the first time I'd seen him, but he's one of the new school Cubans, and yeah, he's a little bit leaky in terms of defense, but he's got power and he's a very vicious come forward fighter. And the knockout that he delivered to Navarro, that is definitely going to make my 10 when it comes to the knockout of the year. I'm not sure where I'm going to put it. It could be very high. It could technically even end up at number 1. I'm not sure yet. There's been a lot. This weekend has been a weekend for knockouts, quite frankly. But yeah, big ups to Tejas. He's getting his name on the scene. I'm not sure if he's actually with MVP Promotions because his last bout was on a PBC card. But if he is a free agent or he's being floated around, I think that's another one for maybe Matchroom or Top Rank to sort of have a look at, because even if you don't think he's going to go super far, he is definitely going to be in some highly entertaining fights, and he will be a good addition to any card you put him on. Now, talking about Shadeja Green and Franchon Cruz Dezern, now if you watched my predictions video, you would have heard me say that because Franchon is very sort of busy, especially when she's throwing out those initial shots, Shadeja is a very she's a very sort of tentative fighter. She fights on the back foot, tries to look for openings before throwing her shots. But if she ends up allowing Franchon Cruz to open up, then she'll just end up in the high guard covering up and could potentially start losing momentum and losing parts of the rounds. Now, I predicted that it would go that way in the first few rounds until she managed to either get range or managed to walk Franchon onto maybe one shot that might make Franchon a bit more hesitant to collapse the pocket and get in on the inside the way she normally does, and then potentially tee off on her down the stretch and either get a very late stoppage or be able to sort of get a points decision. Franchon decided to rip up that script. Now, I knew she had it in her, but the heavy hitting diva, she done it again against the odds. She worked the perfect game plan. She flustered Shadeja Green. She employed those you know, sort of those flurries that I knew that she would. But then every time, as soon as she done that, she would get on the inside, stop Shadeja from being able to do anything at all, work the body, rip the body, sometimes get a bit dirty, push her around a bit. Clearly showed that she was the much stronger of the two in the clinch, and just continuously nullified Shadeja's work, and she just couldn't get anything off, to the point where I think I had it. I think my scorecard was 94-96 to Franchon, but the judges had it, 2 of them was 97, 93, and 1 was 98, 92. I can't even really argue with those scorecards either. Shadeja just didn't do enough. She didn't take her opportunity, and now it's back to the drawing board. And considering, again, she's in a division where there's not a lot of people around, this may have been her only shot. I think the only upside she has is the fact that she's with MVP Promotions, Jake Paul, and that, so they might be able to orchestrate a rematch with Franchon, or even potentially a Clarissa Shields fight, or possibly even like a Christina Hammer fight or something like that. Or maybe Savannah Marshall might decide to take that bout now, although I think she'll probably just want the belt back first. Who knows? But that's that one. Not really going to talk about Jake Paul and Andre August, but what I will say is Jake Paul's knockout uppercut in the first round, nasty. I don't know if I will put it in my list just due to the level of opposition and disparity, but to be honest, they might both be on similar levels in terms of their boxing abilities. So I haven't thought about it yet, but the knockout was brutal. Moving on to Saturday. Now, I didn't watch the entire card for Josh Kelly, Pretty Boy Kelly, and I can't remember the name of his opponent off the top of my head. I know I think his surname was Rodriguez. I think it might have been like Enrico or something like that. But he was a last minute replacement. And I know he was from, where was he from? I think he was Colombian. You could see the size difference between the two quite visibly in the ring. The guy was very much smaller than Josh Kelly, and he didn't look to open up at any point. He looked sort of very tentative from the start. Ultimately, look, it went 3 rounds. There's not really much to say. It was Josh Kelly styling on an opponent that didn't really want to be there at the time. That's about as much as I'm going to say. Again, I can't remember his full name, so apologies for that. I wasn't even planning on speaking on that card, but that was the only fight I actually sat down and watched. But luckily it was over very quickly. So yeah, third round, another brutal uppercut, lifted his face outside of the guard. Boom. He went down to his knee and stayed down on his knee, sort of holding his nose. Maybe the nose was broke. I guess he was looking for blood, didn't come up. Ref counted him out, and he was still sort of down after about 12-13 seconds of the 12-13 count. So yeah, the punch clearly really hurt him, but he didn't want any more after that. Cool, it happens. Moving over to the Matchroom and the Zone card that took place in Glendale, Arizona. Now, with this one, 5 fights, which were very, very tasty fights. And from the press conference, you would have seen that there was quite a few back and forth that was going on. And the first one was, it was Junaid Boston against Gordy Ross II. I think that's his name, Gordy Ross II. Now, that fight was interesting because he was Sugar Hill's nephew, I believe. I think he was the nephew. So they had that little bit of back and forth there. And Gordy Ross had basically been in his DMs, saying, look, let's fight. Now, this fight was definitely almost like a pressuring boxer puncher versus a boxer puncher. So Junaid Boston definitely was patrolling the ring, and he was landing quite cleanly on Ross, especially sort of in the first couple rounds. But Ross just kept forward. He was standing behind a very sort of tight guard. So even though he was getting caught with shots, he was most of the time able to absorb the shots because he was in a pretty solid stance. Opens up into the third round, and one thing I used to say about Junaid Boston, he used to fight with his chin up in the air. Now in this fight, his chin was tucked for the majority of it, so I have to give him respect. He's definitely been learning there, but it did pop up on a couple of occasions. And in the third round, he decided to get a bit happy, trigger happy with Ross, and it backfired spectacularly because they ended up in several exchanges where he then started taking clean punch after clean punch. Now, to be fair to him, his chin held up, he rolled a lot, and then backed away, started circling the ring to try and get breathers, but Ross was on him at that point, and I think at that point he felt that the fight was his to be won. But Junaid Boston came through that crisis, and then you had Grant in the corner basically reading him the right act, saying, what are you doing? Grant Smith said, this is not, you trying to get yourself knocked out. You will do if you carry on fighting like this. So he calmed down, tried to go back behind the jab, tried to set up shots from sort of rounds 4, 5 and 6. He was still getting caught here and there, and Ross was definitely pressing the action throughout a few of those rounds. I gave him a few of those, even though I know one of the judges only gave him the 3rd round, which I thought was really poor work. But that being said, it was a highly competitive match. Janae Boston did end up winning, and he did actually wobble Russ in the very, very last rounds, almost like one of the last punches of the fight. But it was a great learning fight for him, and he's basically he's probably learnt more in this one fight than he had in his last 5, but he knows now what he has to tighten up on. But yeah, it was a great fight on Before the Bell, and it definitely set the scene for the main card. Now moving into the main card, Peter McGrail versus Jericho O'Quinn. Now that name is a mouthful to say, but this has to arguably be like the most one-sided defeat in the history of boxing. Now, when I say that, it was if you want to call it a shot from the gods, but it was one overall shot. There's, you had Jericho O'Quinn, like he was doing okay, necessarily. He wasn't doing perfectly, but he was sort of catching and timing Peter McGrail through some parts of the rounds. So at that point you caught him and you said, okay, well, he's got to tighten up on that, but ultimately he ended up going down twice. Once was ruled as a slip, and then the second time was ruled as a legit knockdown. Actually, no, I think he actually went down 3 times. 2 of them were called knockdowns. 1 was called a slip. But Quinn just he was losing pretty much almost every second of every round, minus a couple of small counters where you could see that, okay, it's there, but you can't be trading on that. You've got to be careful. But then ultimately it's in the 5th round, I believe it was, where Peter McGrail was stepping on the front foot. He got a bit happy. He shot a straight backhand left, which, O'Quinn sort of rode back. It did connect a little bit, but he rode off of it. Came back round, arching right hook, boom, straight on the chin. Peter McGrail goes down, out cold, can't move. He's just motionless underneath the bottom rope, and it gets called off. The referee was counting. He was trying to make sure he saw the count, but he waved that straight off after, I think he actually got to the 10 count and waved it. So it was literally, it's probably, like I said, the most, or maybe the most one-sided beatdown return victory that I think I've ever seen, because he wasn't winning hardly anything of any round. There was 1 or 2 counters here or there, but he was just getting picked apart. He had a cut eye, everything, and then literally one punch just pulled it all out the bag. So it'll be interesting to see where Peter McGrail goes from there. Apparently they look like they might want to run the rematch back. I mean, Jericho O'Quinn might not want to. He might have a bit of leverage and say, nah, I ain't gonna do that, give me something else. But he said, he'd been working 12-hour shifts. He didn't even get a chance to spar for this fight. He goes, they picked a cherry, but they picked the wrong one. And on this occasion, he was proved right. Big ups to him. Next, Unify versus Rocco Santomoro. Now look, I've got a bit of criticism over this one because I was obviously live scoring the fight. Obviously I didn't live score the first 2 rounds because I was still sort of setting up the live, but I gave, from what I saw of them, I gave them to Your Fight. But I had it, literally I had the first 3 rounds to Your Fight from what I saw, but I've seen some other people say that Rocco may have actually won the first. I'll have to go back and check it. But as I was commentating and scoring this fight, I'm actually seeing from rounds 4, 5, 6 onwards, basically up until sort of round, I think it was round 8 or round 9, I had Santomoro winning those rounds. He was blocking almost everything that Unify was putting in. He was catching him on his pivot. He was turning with him, stopping that sort of pivot shot. He was landing more at will. Now his punches didn't look like they had the same amount of mustard on them initially, but by the end, by sort of the 8th, 9th, 10th round, neither guy's punches looked that heavy. But I'm looking at this fight and I'm just seeing almost everything that Unify is throwing is getting blocked or parried or countered, or he's slipping and riding them. Yeah, some stuff is getting through, but not a lot. Yeah, he's throwing a lot of volume, but nothing really is landing. But every moment in between the exchanges, he's getting picked off. His head is getting snapped back. His head's getting rocked back. And I don't know what it was other people were seeing. Maybe it was just because he was more active, and obviously there was a lot of stuff that was landing somewhere, even if they weren't landing scoring zones of the body. And, you know, even to the point where through rounds 6, 7 and 8, for the most part, Santomoro was actually pushing him back towards the ropes. He was holding and controlling the center ring. That's my opinion on it. Obviously, if anyone wants to disagree, that's fine. I will go back and rewatch it. If I need to rescore it and make an amendment, I will do so. But personally, in my opinion, I think that Santomoro won the fight. And if he didn't win it, he at least got 4 rounds to me as an absolute minimum. So when I saw there was one card that was like 99, 91, and then I think the other two were 97, 93. Yeah, to me, that's nasty, because I didn't see that fight. Maybe other people did, but I didn't. And to me, there's no way that he can only get 1 round in that. But again, it's another very competitive fight, but it also shows that GALORE 5 maybe can't be pushed as quickly as they thought, because there's a lot he needs to work on. But there's also the problem of him being, what, 30, 31 coming up, so he hasn't got a huge amount of time left, especially not at flyweight. You know, his body is going to grow out of that division fairly soon, if not by now. At them ages, you shouldn't really be making that kind of weight. So it's going to be interesting how much longer he can actually maintain down there. But it doesn't seem like he's getting better. He seems to be using offense as defense for the majority of his fights, and that is something that obviously is going to get him. It's going to get him found out when he steps up a further level from this. But in my opinion, as I said, I think Rocco Santomoro won this one, in my opinion, from what I saw. But if not, it was a hell of a lot more competitive than the judges had it. So I think that was a bit of a disservice. But yeah, moving from that, Moritajan Akhmadaliev against Kevin Gonzalez. This was a pretty good fight as well. I'm not really going to go too much into it, but the first couple rounds, Gonzalez looked like he was imposing his will a bit more, but Akhmadaliev found his range from about the middle to end of the second round till up to the third, and then he basically just started sort of teeing off. He was still staying responsible. Every now and again, he would still have to sort of check back out to stop a sweeping right hook from Kevin Gonzalez or something of that nature, but it was just slow, steady, applied pressure from sort of the third, fourth, fifth, all the way up until I think it was stopped in the 8th round. Let me just double check if I've got it on my screen. Yeah, it was stopped in the 8th. There was a beautiful sneaky uppercut on the inside as Gonzalez was stepping in, and the uppercut, it was so beautiful. Like, he actually delayed. He was about to throw his shot, and as he was throwing his shot, it's like it was a delayed reaction, and then his legs just buckled from underneath him as he was about to throw the shot, literally about a second after the uppercut had landed. So that was how much it didn't even compute to him that he had been hit. But he got back up. His nose at this point was visibly busted open, you know, very, very badly broken. You know, he got back up, said he wanted to continue, but Akhmadaliev came back, 2-piece, bam, bam. He stumbles again, and the ref calls it off, and he ends up falling to the floor once again. So he is now, I didn't actually realize it was a final eliminator for the WBA. I just thought it was an eliminator with the winner likely getting Inoue next, but no, it was a final eliminator. So he will get the winner of Inoue Topales unless they vacate that belt. Him versus Inoue is a very good fight. I always said stylistically, I felt like Topales will have a better chance against Inoue, even though I still expect Inoue to win. But Akhmadaliev, that could also be a very, very good technical battle if the two of them do fight. So I'll be interested to see how that one plays out. But now, moving on to the main event. Jesse Bam Rodriguez versus Sonny Showtime Edwards. Now, I ain't gonna lie, this fight did not play out how I thought it would in the slightest, except for I felt that Bam would have to go running for Sonny, and ultimately Sonny would basically be quite happy to stay sort of on the back foot and make Bam come to him, try to employ counters, but then possibly get tired, or have to really stay switched on throughout the entirety of the bout. But what ended up happening is, yes, Bam did step forward and come forward into range, but Sonny actually met him head on and fought him in the center of the ring. He barely moved, especially in the first few rounds, which was really surprising to me. Now, there's a bit of controversy from some people about how I scored this fight. I did have Bam up at the time of the stoppage in the 9th round, but my scorecard, when I gave Sonny Edwards the first round, I gave Bam the second, I gave Sonny the third, I gave him the fourth, I gave him the fifth, then I gave Bam the 6th, 7th, the 8th, and obviously the 9th, plus the knockdown just before it got stopped. Now, I rewatched it about an hour ago. Surprisingly, I'm not that tired, but as I rewatched it about an hour and a half ago, the 4th round I still gave to Sonny, but the 5th was a swing for me. So if people gave the 5th round to Bam, I can't argue. And to be honest, I wasn't arguing anyone else's scorecard anyway. It was more people that was arguing mine. But I can understand if people gave the 5th round to Bam. But I had it for Sonny the first time. The second time I had it a lot closer, and I was like, maybe I could give that one to Bam. And even when I was tweeting out, a lot of them are saying very close round, like Bam might be, his punches might be looking like they got more mustard, but Sonny is landing to me more convincingly, or at least more like his punches they're a lot more noticeable. They're actually hitting the target correctly, whereas a lot of Bam, sometimes you couldn't tell if they was hitting the glove, or, you know, am I taking the headshots over the body shots, or is 4 body shots the equivalent of 2 headshots? And it's one of those ones. So the CompuBox numbers came out, which I know they said that Bam landed over 60% of his power punches. Now that might be correct, depending on obviously where they're scoring. But when they say he outlanded Sonny by over 100 punches, I don't know if I saw that. He might have thrown, some of them might even have connected somewhere, but to say that they were all scoring shots is the one thing that I might have an issue with, because yes, obviously a lot of them, there's a lot of damage there, but there's a lot that I'm seeing that is hitting gloves, that is being blocked, that is, they're not scoring in any parts of the body that you can score on. And obviously I know one thing, a lot of people will say, oh yeah, well, look at Sonny, look at his face. Like, how can you say that he's not getting beaten? And I'm like, look, I understand some people look at like facial damage or maybe the impact of a certain shot and say that that's the one that counts, but I try not to take facial damage as a sole metric as to who's winning the fight, because there's been times you've seen someone that's clearly winning every single round, but they're just getting marked up anytime they get touched, and that sometimes isn't due to the power of the other person. It's just literally because they mark up easy. I've seen Sonny barely hitting some other fights and still marked up. He might just have that kind of skin. There's a few people that I've seen like that. So while I admit that Bam's punches were having success and he was obviously landing quite well, I didn't use the fact that Sonny's face was like battered and bloodied as a metric to, oh, he's definitely losing the fight. But what I did say throughout a lot of the rounds, if you was reading my tweets, I'm like, there's a lot of, I was either saying the rounds were close, or Sonny might have just landed, or he might have been outworking him here or there, but Bam is investing. Like Sonny, he's making Sonny have to fight his fight, so he's controlling the tempo. Even if Sonny is winning those rounds at that moment, like Bam is about to win the war. He's coming on, and as I got from like the 5th to the 6th round, and then the 7th and the 8th and the 9th, I'm saying it's only going one way from here, and I don't see it hitting there. I don't see it leaving and going to the end of the going to scorecards. So yeah, I had it that, you know, Sonny had a lead at the start, but Bam basically took over from the middle rounds and then basically just slowly sort of wore him down and broke him down. But what I do have to say is a big credit to Sonny Edwards, number one, for hanging in there, but number two, fighting in the center of the ring, trading in the center, not boxing and moving or running as, you know, he has been accused of doing. He said he couldn't see out of his left eye from like the second round, that he was seeing double, and then his right eye started to close. He's like, I have to stay close to him. So if I'm close to him, and then I can throw. I can hit him if I'm close to him. I can't see him from range. So he employed the tactic. Now look, I don't think Sonny has the same level of power that Bam has, but I do think he has a bit more power than people think he does. And there were several shots in there that did, I'm not going to say they wobbled Bam at all, but they definitely earned his respect. He felt them, he noticed them, he acknowledged them. But he just stuck to his game plan. He trusted that his chin was better. He trusted that his chin could take whatever Sonny could throw, and ultimately he was proved right. In the end of the ninth, it was a vicious counter left that he caught as Sonny was trying to open up on his own shot, right in sort of, I think it was 4 seconds before the end of the round, 3 to 4 seconds. Sonny goes down, drops, and you can tell when someone is really badly hurt when they end up face planting. His forehead hit the canvas before his hands did. But he was up again, alert. That might have even woke him up. He's listening to the count. He gets up at the count of 8. The ref says, "You want to continue?" He said, "Yep, I want to go." Bell goes, he goes over to the corner. Now look, this is where the controversy comes in. Me personally, as soon as he walked in the corner, I heard Grant Smith yell outside the ring, "Towel." He said towel, as in, get me a towel. This fight's over. Then him and Sonny motioned and said something to each other. Now, I tried to listen in, so I've gone back a couple times. I've listened to it, and roughly from what I can hear, someone out of the two, I think it was Sonny, but it might have been Grant, but they said, "Is the fight still going on?" I heard someone say, "Is the fight still going on?" And then I heard something that says, "Nah, it's over." I don't know who said what, but that's what it sounded like when I was listening, because I had to listen back a couple times for that. And then obviously Grant has motioned over to the ref and he said, "Yeah, no, we're stopping it." So again, I don't know who said that, but all I do know is when he walked over to the corner, Grant Smith yelled out and said "towel." So that to me showed that he had the intention of stopping that fight in the first place. And you could hear the commentary saying, yeah, they're going to stop this fight, as Sonny was even walking back to before he's had any exchange. So when people want to say that he quit, I don't know wholeheartedly if he did. All I can tell you is what I saw, and I saw the corner look like they had made that decision before they even had any interactions. But what I will say is, if he did, or if he was going to quit, he could have stayed on his knee, or he could have stayed on the ground and acted more hurt than he was, and took a knockout like that. But maybe he would have said, you know, I'd rather be stopped on my feet rather than laid out flat on the ground. And maybe he would have, that optic looks better. You know, okay, I was retired in the corner, rather than, yo, he just slumped me and I'm just out flat on my face in front of the world. So I don't know which one he might prefer, but that's kind of my situation. Obviously, you guys feel free to leave yours in the comments. I'm sure there's a lot of people who disagree and think that he may be asked to be pulled out. I guess time will tell, and we'll find out soon enough. With that being said, there was a Showtime card on. I haven't been able to see it. My website that I usually use only had the live streams going. They haven't uploaded any of the videos yet, so I need to wait for some of those fights. But Andre Berto, I know he lost. I actually thought that he might pull out a split decision victory there, so got that one wrong. My predictions, I only got one of my 3 predictions that I put on video correct, so I've had a stinker this week. But yeah, also you had Colbert versus Rayo. I thought that Colbert would repeat, because in the first fight I felt like, well, he survived the first one, he'd be able to make the adjustments in the second one to make it an easier fight, as he was the, you know, the boxer of the two. Rayo made a fool out of me again with another knockout, which could be KO of the year. There were so many of them this weekend. I don't know. The only one I got right, and it's the only fight I didn't actually put any thought into, it was David Morrell Jr. versus Senna Habeko. And I think I said I expect him to get him out of there within 4 or 5 rounds. Got him out of there in the second. Again, I haven't seen it. I want to watch it because I love watching David Morrell work, but that is ultimately what happened there. Jim Gray gave a very nice heartfelt speech about Showtime, bowing out on this being their final broadcast. All I will say to that is shout out to Jim Gray, but as I've said before, if they hadn't have been giving us fights, mediocre fights for the last 5 years, and not making the fights that people were asking for, especially when the people were asking for them, or putting any type of mediocre or halfway decent fight that people weren't asking for behind the paywall, chances are they would have had a lot more success and they would still be in business now. But that being said, shout out to Jim Gray, because he is a real one, and I hope he moves over to one of the other networks, because he is a very good post-fight interviewer. With that being said, I'm going to leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching. Chances are, I think I might end up doing a Day of Reckoning live stream. So a couple of people did ask me, and I kind of enjoyed it last night. So yeah, with no real eyes or pressure watching. So you know what, I think I will do. So look out for more news about that. But I will leave you to enjoy the rest of your Sunday, watch the football, eat some good food, rest, relax, get yourself prepped again for Monday coming up. But for right now, thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.